Hello chess fans, and welcome back to another edition of 101 Ways to Win or Lose a Game of Chess. I'm your host, Onyx Chess, and today we will be finalizing our series on king safety. We have saved the best for last, and this is the Cochrane's, of course, where we're going to look at how, king safety considerations are going to factor into the kinds of moves that we want to make. Petrov Cochrane is a line where it starts e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes e5, d6, and then knight takes on f7, where black is obliged to take that knight with the king. Now, it's really tough to just talk about only the king imbalance. I mean, certainly now black has a loose king. Certainly white's king is better. But that's not the only imbalance at play here. And this is where, again, we can't get any kind of tunnel vision on any specific imbalance or even imbalances themselves. Alright, we want to broaden our vision even further and talk about what does that mean. What does this imbalance mean as relates to the next imbalance, and then taking a bigger picture of all the imbalances working together would mean what for my next move. Watch now. In this position, white's chief advantage isn't actually the loose king. It's actually initiative. This is a matter now where what white says goes. And as long as white can keep the initiative, as long as white can stay acting and black has to keep reacting, white should be able to prove better. The danger for white is if black is allowed to consolidate all of the issues to where the only thing white's accomplished with knight takes f7 is here, have a piece for a couple pawns. This can't be allowed, and it'll probably move into a lost endgame for white. So the whole point is actually not just the king getting loose. The point of this is, of course, to keep initiative. And so we would be wise to play with that in mind. This is where moves like saying, let's play b3 and then bishop b2 and just see if we can maybe do that because someone did that once, or I did that once, or I had a strong sniper bishop once. Let's do that again. That's not how you do it. That's not how you find a move, you see, because that would be too slow. It breaks a rule. It's too slow. We need initiative. We need now. We need moves that do things right here, right now, permanently. Okay, so instead d4 I think is the better move. I'm not sure what others play or what computers say, but for me I like d4 because it does something right now. White now is controlling both of his central squares as well as the extended center. Bishops are completely free, and development should be able to fly out now. Further, some space is gained, and as we'll see, after bishop to e7, f4 puts a stranglehold on the e5 central square. Now, coming down the pipe is obviously kingside castle with that rook looking at that king and or in the king's direction. And you can see now where white's attack it's really mounting. All right, there's something to be said for storing up potential in a situation. There's something to be said for storing up energy in a situation. You know, sometimes it's nice to get the ducks in a row. Okay. black is feeling that there's now time to get safe, to where white now has an interesting idea. And the idea that white has is a creative one. The idea that white's thinking about right now is new. Okay, white hadn't thought about ever putting the queen on b3 until now. Seen this position enough times, but just always thinking about things a little differently. And you'll find when you're playing your best chess, you'll be playing new moves that you'll see the move you used to make and you'll see the move you're making now, and there's a big difference. Alright, so white's now thinking, what if we can keep that king loose though? Okay. Every time white has played the Petrov's gambit, that king has wound up safe back on g8 and or h8. Okay, so why is that necessary? Can we keep it in the middle? So white's now playing creatively and having fun. Main thing. White's having a lot of fun, wondering, hey, I wonder if black can prove that he can get his king safe. And so white plays now bishop c4. Alright, and it's not a lot of options unless the king wants to move here or here. Right? There's not really a lot of options for black here. Black decides to trade an inactive piece for white's active piece. But the thing is that brings the king not only one move closer to the center, but another move further into the board on the 6th row now. This is starting to look a little crazy, especially when you see the power of these pawns really just right next to the king. Alright. So, yeah, king vulnerability should be an idea here. And now king feels that, feels the air, says, oh man, it's breezy out today. Let me go back inside, out away from these gale force winds. Now, here we saw the point of bishop c4. The point was c3, threatening, of course, the queen's prosecution on the a2 g8 diagonal and the b7 pawn. Okay, so this is something new and everybody's having fun. Of course, there is now no time for that king to get back to h8. Very cool business. Black wonders now what to do. Probably the only move, but nonetheless, this is a big question for white. Does white take back the pawn here? Or does white instead consolidate the position with something like e5? Now, let's just play through what happens if we play e5, because again, anytime we're making a decision, it means that we're supposed to have a long list of good reasons for why we would do one thing instead of the other. In this position, if we choose to play e5 instead of queen takes on b7, what we're going to notice is a few things change in the position. First off, the knight's going to become outposted in the center, and that's going to be a fairly static and strong nuisance. We can say, look, knight can come out, knock it right off. You know what? That's not a lie. That's completely true. Yes, white can trade some material here, but the question is, how wise is that? Don't forget, white is still down a point. So all things equal, white's going to be moving into a lost end game. Further, what's the scope of this bishop? Is there any way that black could play something like g6 in this position, just to make sure that f5 can't easily be played? Perhaps even migrate his king back over that way and effectively cancel the 3 points that the bishop represents from the board. Could that happen in this kind of a position here a little bit? Further, to get this knight out, we would spend like the move here, 1, the move to take it, 2, and now what's going on in terms of initiative? I think it would be completely gone. Completely. Alright, so yes, playing e5 would take center control. Yes, playing e5 would certainly help our space advantage. But at the end of the day, if we want to keep our advantages, then we will have to use tactics that will prove that we're worthy. And right now we want to keep initiative, so that's where the consideration to probably take b7 comes into play. Now again, white is acting, black is still reacting. And black has to move the knight out to protect the rook. Alright, so now e5 makes sense, where we have two loose pawns being protected by a knight that's being attacked. Black questions the queen. Queen should have taken pawn on a7, but I guess the thinking was a pawn on a7 might be a useful feature for protecting the queen from the rook when the queen wants to attack the d5 pawn from the a5 square. So rook comes out, queen moves to a5, attacking d5, and finally black feels some time, maybe get that king safe. White does likewise, points the castle at the king, backs up the f4 square, and prepares ideas of f5. Note, pawn is still under attack, knight is still under attack, so black has to find a spot for that knight. Queen takes the pawn with check, and this is probably curtains. It's very difficult to see where white doesn't have all the time in the world to do anything that white wants to do. Furthermore, it really does help redefine the role of the pawn in a chess game, because we can call them potential limiters. And that's what they do all day long. They limit the potential of everything, including your own pieces if you're not careful. So that's what they do. They're there to really dampen the potential of one or both players. Alright? Because if you look here, I mean, where would black even move? Oops, where would black even move? Everything is covered by those pawns. The only piece that seems to be at all active is a rook that's doing nothing in specific. And we see even if rook gets enough time to move over to g6, it's still simply kicked with g5 covered by the bishop. It's very tough to see how black would ever get active. It's just pawns are deadly. The more you have, the more important. They might be 1 point here, 1 point there, but if they're isolated, then they're worth less. If they're all together, they're worth more. So yeah, this is very strong. Obviously black won't survive this attack. Again, developing with tempo, and this is curtains. Here's a little simple consideration. Now, materials in white's favor. All right, white's basically up a pawn here, far more, but in terms of material, a pawn. So instead of just playing, the pawn to f6 and saying, haha, I split you guys with a pawn, haha, I get a piece, haha. Instead of that, what white does instead is, what, let's first trade a piece off and then knock another piece off the board like that. Okay, and so now white has consolidated the material. White ends up 2 pawns up, and the end game is completely winning, particularly after white forces the trade of the queens. So this is just a little bit of a little interesting kind of a game, this Cochrane's, where everything's included. All right, every balance you can name, and really and truly, if you're either going to go insane thinking about them, or you're going to try and realize it's just a matter of prioritizing which one takes precedent in any given position. All right, you could go insane when you think, oh, there's all imbalances. There's 6 different imbalances I'm supposed to factor in. How am I supposed to factor that in? You're telling me I have 15 minutes to factor in everything regarding center, everything regarding space, everything regarding... and effectively, the answer is yes, you're supposed to do that. But it becomes a far easier process when we're able to just kind of get a feel for it, and have kind of like a radar going on that kind of directs us to the chief, to the primary, the the pinnacle of the matter, you know, and then we can focus more on which one in specific we should be tuning our tactical calculators into, you understand, like that. So anyway, this has been Onyx Chess. Thank you for watching. Until next time, may you see the board well, and may your pieces find the best squares.